wacky start of the day. How do I explain this? I'll try without actually revealing too much, just because, yeah, I just can't usually. But essentially what happened was yesterday I was asked if I could, I guess, work on this production and all that, and they basically needed some people, and I said like, okay, if you need help, I guess I could do it. So they tried to narrow it down, I guess, to a few people. And apparently they chose someone else to do it, which, you know, that's usually the way it is. But then apparently in the morning, the guy never showed up, so they were scrambling like to find someone else. And apparently I was like the next best choice, so they tried to reach me. But apparently like during that time, I guess it was super duper early. I usually put my phone like in an airplane mode just to not be disturbed or anything like that. So they were trying like frantically to try to get a hold of me. Once I got the message, I was like, okay, I guess I can make it if you still need it. And so I was just waiting for like any confirmation. But during that time when they were waiting, they called someone else apparently, and he was supposed to go there, but apparently he didn't no-show as well. So afterwards, when they did get a hold of me, I was like, okay, I guess I can still get there. It'll take like this long. And it turned out like, no, we need you like right now. And they're willing to pay for like all the driving or whatever to like get me there. Like, okay, are you sure? Like, yeah, they really need it, because usually like in these type of productions, it's probably like $10,000 an hour, like every time they're down. So imagine all the money they lost by not doing it. But then as they were preparing all this stuff, apparently one of the guy who was, I guess, like 2 to 3 hours late eventually showed up, and they said, okay, thanks, the guy actually showed up now. So I didn't have to end up going there. Actually, it made me kind of curious with a situation like that as a company. Would you be inclined to, in the future, be more subconscious about weighing in the pros and cons of, I guess, hiring someone who has the exact right specs versus someone who may not have the exact right specs but has like the work ethic and reliability? Kind of makes me wonder if it's a factor there, because I would imagine like, holy, that's a lot of money to lose, like for someone not to show up and stuff like that. Well, the experience would have been fun though. It makes me wonder if I should leave my phone on in the wee early mornings. I usually don't, because it gets too distracting when you leave like your phone on like that. People like browsing the internet and stuff like that without going to like sleep. Maybe I should buy one of those helpers, like those Google Homes, those Alexas, and program it or something like that, saying, if it's a super important emergency from this, then show note or something like that, play music. No word from the DJI yet, but you guys actually left some comments that made me think actually in terms of, I guess, things like drone regulations and, you know, responsible flyers and all that. Just for the DJI too, like I documented everything so far, every step of the way. So if like you even saying like, here, if they do send it back, remember my serial number or to check it. I would be kind of surprised if they actually just sent it back and did nothing right now, considering all the documentation and stuff there is of the process all the way. Makes me what would happen at that point. Like if they say, well, it's our policy to do this, I'm like, yeah, but you guys said this. It would be the equivalent of like saying, or I guess going to a retail store, even though the policy is written there. If the employee tells this person, yeah, it's okay, go ahead, what wins in that case? The employee, for example, promising the person this, or what's written in the text in that case? Because I know from my experience, at least here in Canada, if the employee messes up, then it's the manager's kind of responsibility to say, okay, sorry, we have to take the responsibility for this. These places are probably going to be really empty soon, because the school is starting. Right, the first interesting thing I read was about that crazy hurricane, and they showed basically this radar image, and they said it was the first time they've seen 3 hurricanes in the radar at once. Man, Mother Nature must be mad this year for whatever reason. Floodings, like smokes and fires and stuff here. What's next? But the biggest news that caught my attention today was credit related, like finance stuff. There's a company here in North America called Equifax. They do things like credit monitoring and credit scores, and apparently their database has been breached by whoever, like hackers or whatever, and there was millions of customers who could have potentially been compromised. The crazy thing was, this thing was actually discovered back in, it says here, Equifax discovered the hack July 29th, but waited until Thursday to warn consumers. So basically this has happened for a while, but they just kept it under wraps, and it wasn't until recently where the executives published like a video saying they're sorry about the breach and they're working on it. So for anyone who's used that service, you might want to check it out just to see whether or not you're one of the potential people who's been compromised. Man, lots of data related stuff happening too, right? Kind of reminds me even with the drones, why like even if you're flying, like you don't really care, stuff can actually happen, so you should pay attention to it. It's kind of funny because when you were mentioning before, when you heard the word recreational users, you were thinking of other stuff, and I can actually smell that, well, the recreational, so to speak. You're actually not even supposed to smoke in the parks like this, to my knowledge, just because of the forest fires and stuff like that. Apparently the biggest thing about this story though was a couple of days before this hack actually took place, it says some executives actually sold their stock shares of the company. Coincidence? But it basically says here, the sale of nearly 2 million in corporate stock by high-level Equifax executives shortly after the company learned of the major data breach has sparked public outrage that could turn into another hurdle for the credit rating agency. That's a little bit too coincidental in my opinion anyways. I mean, yeah, like, show the proof and all that, but still, does anyone not think like they kind of knew what was happening? I mean, I'm inclined to believe anyways when stuff like that happened in such a coincidental fashion, I think there's something must have been up. I don't know if it wants to play or it thinks I have food. Sorry, no food, bud. So again, after attending that Transport Canada session, there's a lot of questions in terms of whether or not they're actually listening to people. And you guys were actually saying some interesting things in regards to, I guess, what side of the fence you're going to be on if the rules are going to be put out as it is. Like some of you, maybe you won't even fly anymore, you'll be more cautious, maybe you will go to the commercial route. Would I personally stop flying drones? I don't know, I would probably try to find something again under the 250 grams or something like that. At the same time, they did say if you fly indoors, then they're not going to regulate that at all, so there is still some kind of, I guess, way to fly in that sense. But for me, as mentioned, I bought it as like a video camera, so if I can't like take pictures and videos of outside, then I would be inclined to say, what's the point? At the same time, if I was to go through all that insurance process, I mean, again, for me to justify that, I'd have to be like a business. I'd have to do it for a business reason. I can't justify spending like, you know, $600 on insurance and stuff like that just to fly something for fun. Funny enough, maybe that's what a quote evil corporation wants, basically to ground a person, I guess like myself, who takes videos and stuff for fun, because I guess in many ways the quality of stuff that a recreational guy gets can be equivalent to a commercial guy. So maybe keeping them under 250 would be the equivalent of saying like those things have crappy cameras anyway, so there's no way it's going to compete with us in a professional field. Again, that's more of the Hollywood movie style thing, although I don't doubt it, okay? I don't put it past in terms of from a business point of view. Come on.
Kiki's 130 grams.
Oh, here we go.
Hi, sweetie. Couldn't decide whether you. I went right behind.
He took that, I saw that
Yeah,
one.
come here. Look, I think he's gonna come on.
Whoa.
Oh, he's on the ground. Oh, you got the pretzel. Oh, here comes a big guy now.
Oh, he stole it.
He stole the little
He
guy's
stole the pretzel.
He stole the pretzel. Oh, he almost had a baby.
Oh.
I don't know if they're chickadees or finches. I don't know. Swallows. What the hell was that?
That was a
Someone
extremely
sneezing.
loud sneeze.
Almost an animal I'm not aware of.
Come on.
Oh,
Lord.
Scaring the
that's
birds.
scaring the birds.
Jeez.
Wow, that guy really did scare them.
Come on. You're sneezing or what?
I don't know, that's scary.
Come on. Scaring my birds.
Whoa.
Oh, you got one. You're getting luckier than me.
Ah,
Oh,
See, they're playing the field now.
well, that's interesting. And the sunlight's coming out. And then one of you guys brought up the point on how even though you have all these regulations, if there's nothing in place in general to enforce them, then it's pretty much like useless. Then people should still like, you know, just fly them and not be afraid. It kind of made me wonder about the topic enforcement, like in terms of flying the drones. I mean, is that like a factor for a lot of people, like flying it? Like even though the regulation says this, the enforcement, like even like some police officers, they think like the laws are ridiculous, like with the way it's like proposed, like even like way before. Would people still fly it just because they don't think it's enforceable, or would you still play it safe? It's like, nah, no way. And so about enforcement, some of the examples were used of, I guess, like other big YouTubers, for example, who fly drones very irresponsibly, whether I guess it's around buildings or areas where they're not supposed to fly, yet nothing's done to them. And as well, like examples of like even companies like say DJI still partner with them, like even after the fact, knowing that they have like these very irresponsible flights. And I was thinking, does that really show that it's not really enforceable per se, or is it more just that's just like regular business, like to my knowledge, like in terms of like the companies partnering with people? I mean, I would imagine that just comes down to money. You see someone with a really huge like follower base, for example, your product looks bad, like if it has a flyaway to all those people, so for sure, like the company would want to rush there and immediately try to like correct the issue because they don't want the bad publicity. Whereas if someone else did that with a really lower number, they probably wouldn't care, like to my knowledge anyways, like with how it's been going on, like for everything in life if you think about it. The funny thing with enforcement I'm thinking there is for a lot of people I've often heard they say when situations like that, like them flying in the city, just from a regular person point of view, like those people who are big fans of like say the people that fly the drones like that, they're saying like, yeah, it doesn't hurt anyone anyways, so like don't make a big deal about it, so no one really pushes for it. Whereas I know like in the drone community, like from what I see anyways online, people usually only really push that towards people who do the really crazy stuff, like that one before, the guy flying right next to the airplane, like so close in that way. That's the usually ones that make a big deal, like from what I've seen. Even in terms of enforcing, I mean, I can use like any example in life in terms of someone doing something bad where you need like all that proof. Like doesn't matter how obvious it is like to one of us, like that's just the way it works for everything, right? I mean, it reminds me of a story here. Everyone else remember like here in Canada about that the Greyhound bus killer? The guy that went into a bus and he killed like a bunch of people or something like that for whatever reason. I mean, like still, like regardless of that, I'm to my knowledge, a reporter still has to report it in a way saying this man allegedly walked in there and allegedly hurt like all these people. Like to me as a regular person, I'm like, what are you talking about? That guy did walk in there and hurt all the people. You have the video and everything. But that's just the way we work in general. So I don't think it's restricted just to drones in terms of having that example of saying, well, there's an example of it's not enforceable. That's just the way it works in terms of like, to my understanding, like the law and stuff like that. And to my knowledge, how that case ended up, for those who don't know, I think they determined in the end that guy had some kind of a mental issue. That's what they argued, like in the court, and he got away with it essentially. I think the majority of the people are going to fly anyways. They're going to be like under the radar, so everyone's technically a criminal. I mean, you kind of heard like in that Transport Canada thing, which is, again, it's kind of amazing, where the guy even said like, you know, you can fly in your backyard or whatever. Is the police necessarily going to come? No, not likely. And people are even trying to reiterate that's not the point. You're still breaking the law. And the guy's answer was, theoretically, yes. I was like, doesn't that tell you it doesn't make sense then? But they're still not budging like from that video anyways.
So I can't even launch within 10 feet of the ground in my own backyard.
Theoretically, you're correct. Okay. Now, does that mean that your son launches 110 feet in your backyard, some cop's going to go break into the backyard and say, hey, you're too fine? Obviously not.
And your comment about this fellow a little earlier about, you know, his son in the backyard, nobody's going to come and bust you. That's not the point. You're still breaking the law. And, you know, I haven't flown mine for a year because I would be breaking the law.
And, you know, I think personally, like for people that are attending those other sessions, I think things like that need to be brought up more. Okay, all these trees and nature stuff makes me wonder if I have a lot of those type of footage to edit. If I had the drone, that's what I actually would have captured today, fly and edit it. But since I don't have it, let's try to find something to edit. right, see you guys later.